Hi, I'm Coach Daniel, and if you want to sleep amazingly well for the rest of your life, this channel is for you. In this episode, we're going to look at an insight from Alex. This is Alex from Talking Insomnia number 16, in which we discussed what we now call hypnic awareness. Hypnic awareness is when you're just about to drift off to sleep, and then you become aware that this is happening, and that awareness itself kind of jolts you awake. Many of us experience it. For some, it becomes this recurring thing that really disrupts sleep. Now, Alex has spent months pondering this, thinking about it, actually coaching people on the channel, and has, distilled his thoughts in this document that we're going to look at in a second. A big thanks to Alex, of course. And for those of you who saw this episode yesterday without sound, I want to thank Raideep and Fiona for alerting me that I hadn't recorded sound, so I could quickly remove that one. And now I'm back with it again. So with that said, let's take a look at this, this document from Alex here. The insight. For some people, learning how to let go can be very scary and anxiety-provoking. It is our nature when we are confronted by something to try and fix it and control it. This is true when it comes to hypnic awareness. Whenever it happens, our response is to try to fix the problem. However, as with any issue with sleeping, trying to fix, solve, stop the issue causes more harm than good and keeps us up longer. For a while, that was me too. I tried doing things every time I had a hypnic awareness, like trying not to think about it or deep breathing, but ultimately nothing worked. Then I found your channel, and in working with you, you told me that the way to overcome this problem was to not do anything about a hypnic awareness when it happened. But there's the rub. How do you not do anything about something without that non-action becoming something you actively do, ? Now, this is what is super important for people who struggle with hypnic awareness to realize. Trying to not do anything about a hypnic awareness in the moment they happen is like trying to catch a fly that has flown right by your ear. By the time you realize that it's happened, it's already gone. So there's truly nothing you can do about it, even if you tried. I know for some of you, this message can be a little scary, but honestly, this is better news than you think. While you can't control hypnic awarenesses, and when they happen, there's one thing that you do have some control over: your response to hypnic awarenesses. More often than not, hyperarousal, which is your response to a stimuli, happens after you have a hypnic awareness. And this is the thing that can keep you from sleeping, not the hypnic awareness itself. Hyperarousal can take many forms, such as your heart beating really fast, or being frustrated, or being scared that since you had a hypnic awareness, you will never be able to fall asleep. But what they all have in common, however, is that hyperarousal is our response to hypnic awareness. The point that I'm trying to make is that the real problem does not lie with the hypnic awareness. It lies with your response to hypnic awareness, which is hyperarousal. If you just let the hyperarousal happen, you will fall asleep. Now, I can't promise that you will fall asleep right away. In fact, you might momentarily return to consciousness altogether, even if you let the hyperarousal happen. But don't take that to mean that letting hyperarousal happen doesn't work, because soon thereafter, even if you do return briefly to consciousness, you will fall asleep shortly thereafter. I want to again thank Alex so much for sharing this, and I just want to elaborate a little bit, share some of my thoughts around this. So firstly, I have had discussions with Alex and many others on the channel about the very interesting dilemma or conundrum when it comes to doing nothing. And it always boils down to these kind of two interpretations of that, which is, one is, doing nothing is literally no action, but sometimes not doing anything can become an action. It can become like, okay, I'm not going to do anything. It's happening. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything. I didn't do anything, but it still happened, and I didn't do anything. Why isn't it working? So that is very important to know, that doing nothing means no action, but doing nothing can also become an action if you're actively trying to do nothing. So that's an important point. And whenever it comes to hypnic awareness, hypnic jerks, insomnia in general, what you want is, no action. Very important one. And then second one, the one that Alex brought up here, and that I hadn't really thought about myself, and I believe this is super important, just as Alex points out. The moment the hypnic awareness happens, you can't just like, oh, I'm not going to do anything, and then kind of like reverse it and then fall asleep. It's just like he says with the fly. I love that analogy, the fly that buzzed by your ear. When it's happened, it's happened, but there's still that response to it that you can work on. So super important second thing here. And I just want to add to the last thing Alex said, that if you do the non-action of kind of like not doing anything, not the non-action of not doing anything, and you do that after the hypnic awareness happens, you will be much less bothered by them. As he points out, and if you've had these hypnic awareness for a long time and you start implementing his insight, you may still wake up and be awake for a while in the beginning because you still have that lingering hyperarousal, even when you're not like responding to it. But if you keep doing this insight, applying this insight, you will see that hypnic awareness will not bother you. And then at some point, you will not even pay attention, and then you won't even register them. Most people, if they start paying attention, they notice that I have that hypnic awareness there and there. So it's normal in itself. And again, if you apply what Alex said, you will go back to a state where you don't even recognize them happening. Now, what I want to say finally here is that when you understand how this Alex's insight, when you understand how that applies to hypnic awareness, you actually also understand how to apply this to hypnic jerks, which are very similar. That jerk that happens, completely normal, but if you start paying attention to it, trying to prevent it, etc., we have more of them and then bother you more. Now, if you understand that, you actually understand insomnia in itself, because hypnic awareness and hypnic jerks are sort of like a mini version of insomnia. The awareness, those jerks they're normal to have, but if we start, responding in a certain way to them, if we start becoming, if they start producing hyperarousal, then they become much more of a problem. Same thing with insomnia itself. Having sleepless nights, that is in itself something everybody experiences. But when we start responding in a certain way, trying to figure them out, trying to prevent those sleepless nights, we get more of them. And now when you've understood that, then you've actually understood everything, in my opinion, that we classify as mental wellness, meaning racing thoughts, anxiety, always being mentally fatigued, always being sad, those type of things, because they all come from the same thing. They all come from, something that is normal in the beginning. It's something happens that is actually normal, that every human experiences, but then we label that as abnormal, unwanted, undesirable, something we need to escape. And the more we try to figure it out, escape it, stop it, the more of it we have. So I think Alex's insight really, these are my words, not Alex's words, but I believe that Alex's insight is applicable to everything, truly. So if anybody has a question, if you've had hypnic awareness, please leave a comment in the comment section. And one final time, thank you so much, Alex. And I want to say, if you have a question, as always, you can send it to questions@thesleepcoachschool.com, and we will answer that question in an open class episode. So with that said, I thank you so much for tuning in, and hope to have you back here real soon. Until then,